problem that affects Kuwait, Bahrain, Emirates, right? Okay? Well, Bahrain's an island, though. So Bahrain is an island, right? So you have Saudi Arabia. So you have Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, Emirates, right? That would require 3 countries coming together, because that concern is a concern that needs resolution with more than one country's input. The sewage problem that occurred was it 2 years ago? Where the sewage got dumped in yeah, so that required something within Kuwait, but did it extend to any other, did it generate any damage outside of Kuwait's shores?
Not really.
Yeah, so that would be what? Has it resolved by Kuwait, right? It doesn't need the intervention by other countries. Okay? No. So but again, to keep in mind, it's jobs versus protecting the environment. So for example, if I decide to use less paper, okay, what does that do? It's environmental friendly, right? But who gets hurt if I use less paper? The logging industry, right? The logging industry, their job is dependent on what? Us using paper. Okay? Now, these aren't IR examples, but I'm just trying to give you examples of economics and environment. Vice President Gore, when he was vice president and wanted to implement this massive, he wanted to change he was pushing for a law that would change the percentage required the percentage of how much recyclable products needed to be in paper. Okay? And who do you think was totally opposed to it? Well, those companies that had just purchased machinery, okay, that would produce paper at, I don't remember what the percentage was, but just for the sake of discussion, it was 15%. And they say the law would have bumped it up to 25. Well, if that happened, all those machines that were designed to produce paper with 10% recycling products had to be replaced, right? By new machines, because the size of the paper was going to be different. So all those companies that bought these machines would have to buy new machines, which means when you buy a machine, you buy a machine with the expectations of paying it off over a 10-year period, or whatever the period you use for the investment, right? So people then looked at this law as doing what? Hurting their economic benefits. Do you see? So what you're talking about is jobs, we're talking about investment, and you have talking about way of life. When I was a state representative, I remember I voted for a piece of legislation in the State House that required citizens to, made it a fine or made it illegal to dump your grass clippings in the trash, and you have to recycle them. I got death threats from people. People called me wanting to kill me, telling me they're going to kill me as a state representative because I changed their way of life. Okay, so you have all these kind of things that come into being. But again, in this class, we're talking about issues that are relevant to the international relations. And what I did here, and I created this just to kind of give you an idea of what I call the issue proximity breakdown. And that is you have international, regional, national, and state and local. So climate change. So all these different types of issues, okay, are issues that would require more than one country to kind of meet and agree to some sort of resolution. Okay? And then as you have these different types of issues where they become more and more specific, more and more unique, then they trickle down to from the national to the regional, or from the international to the regional, to the national, to the state, and to the local. Meaning, climate change, okay, requires more, climate change requires more than one country. So it's IR. Natural resource depletions, let's say deforestation, all right, could require national intervention. But at the same time, as you know what's happening in the rainforest, right, or in South America, all those trees that are being depleted, okay, isn't just affecting the wildlife and not just affecting the local, the national area, right? but it's also affecting the global problem because we need trees for what? To help us deal with this kind of these global warming issues. Biodiversity, ecosystem, endangered species. There are some species that are unique to a certain nation, to a country, right? Okay, so therefore that's a national issue. Okay, and then of course you have pollution, and then you have so these are all just different examples, and just trying to kind of give you a sense where you have a general kind of problem, and it becomes more and more specific. Where you're talking about pollution in Los Angeles, that requires what? I mean, there's some federal laws that have to be met, but it requires some sort of resolution on the part of the Los Angeles municipality, such as what? Such as, you guys don't have this here, but in the States, in many of the areas where everybody goes to work at the same time, okay, you have these special kind of lanes where you have carpooling, where you have anyone who has more than two people can actually drive in that lane. So that would be, so you have 3 people, 4 people per car, rather than one person driving a car. Rather than 4 cars, you have 1 car with 4 people. So that you have this kind of carpooling concept, or the idea of paying people to use public transportation rather than using the car. Why? Because the car, when a car sits there in traffic, what does it emit? Pollution and a lot of heat, and the heat goes up. Okay, when we use our air conditioning here in Kuwait, what happens? We generate a lot of heat, right? Okay, so anyway, I'm going to stop here because I think I'm out of time. So we're going to start off. We'll do the environment on Wednesday. Okay, we'll finish up the environment, and on the following Monday, I will make sure your blogs are finished by Wednesday, and on the following Monday we'll review the test and the game, and you'll also take a little survey that I've put together for you. So we'll have some fun next week, and then we'll go back and we have one more chapter after the environment, and then what do we have? Finals. All right, ladies, and ladies, pay attention to the current events. All right, all right.
So for
You want to do it, or it's up to you if you want to do it.
yeah, that's fine.
Here, I got it.
Hello.